Hi and welcome to Spiritual Link, the podcast, a podcast about how developing spiritual well-being can help you in your daily life and how that can enhance your confidence in who you are and what you are. The podcast is hosted by Inez and Tor. Inez is a development medium with over 30 years of experience in the field, and Tor has been an apprentice since 2013. In this episode, we wrap up our talks on out-of-body experiences. You can support us by sharing the episode on your social media channels, subscribing to our podcast, and leaving a review. Remember, you can always find us on @spiritualingco on Instagram. Hi Ines, and Happy New Year!
Happy New Year to you too, Thor. Welcome, welcome. Yes, day one.
Day one of 2021, huh?
Woo, yes.
And what a year it's been.
Yes, very much so. But I looked at the news last night when they were through. They started with New Zealand, bong bong, Happy New Year. And anyway, they eventually came to London, which was very quick. All they showed was just the face of Big Ben and bong. Did you see any more? Did we have any fireworks?
Yeah, on BBC there was like a whole thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where was the fireworks coming from? Was it the wheel?
No, so they had like a boat. They had a boat outside of Greenwich, I think. And I think they also had fireworks on, I think it was Tower Bridge.
Okay.
Yeah. It was,
Okay.
I actually thought what they put together was pretty cool. It was really
Good.
lovely.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure what were you watching?
Well, I was actually watching CNN, and they
Right,
only
yeah.
gave a little glimpse.
Right, yeah, no, because the thing on BBC was great.
Really? Oh, good. Good,
Yeah.
good. We didn't let our side down then.
No, absolutely not. It was really
Oh.
lovely. I think, and they did this thing with drones in the sky, and it was like, yeah,
Awesome. It's absolutely awesome. They did something like that in Scotland. Did you see the reindeer, the sort of three-dimensional reindeer? It was
No, I
just
did not.
that's incredible.
No, I didn't see that. That's really, really interesting.
It is very, very nice.
That's
Okay.
lovely.
Brilliant. And onwards and upwards we go.
Absolutely.
What I thought, if you agree, Thor, I don't feel I've completely finished Out of Body yet. And obviously, it's such a big, deep, wonderfully interesting subject. So it's never going to just finish. But I wouldn't mind just doing this session again, just to round it off a little bit.
Go on.
With any sort of questions or, I don't know, forms of interest with Out of Body.
Yeah.
I think one of the most important things that are always asked is that what harm is there? Is there any danger involved? And all I can say is there is absolutely no danger whatsoever, because it's the physical body does not leave, nor does the totalness of the spirit leave. In order to clarify that, the spirit that is around us, that is the learning situation. And that learning situation of the spirit is individual. It is its own thing. We are the vehicle, and we are the learning vehicle for our spirit. The spirit within ourselves, sometimes dubbed as a soul whatsoever, that is what we are able to send out. It is the spirit that moves out just for a period of time. There is the spirit within ourselves. Call it the soul within ourselves. And when it does, it leaves the body in good hands. And that is normally the guides. And have we discussed guides yet, Thor? Briefly, didn't we?
Like we haven't done an episode on guides, but guides have definitely been mentioned when we talked about like regression, and we talked about meditation, and we talked about like the aura and chakras, and
yes,
yeah, it's sort of been mentioned to an extent, but we haven't had an episode on guides.
Okay, well, a guide, of course, there are many different, I won't go into it, but there are many different names for the same thing. A guide, some see them as angels, others see them whatever it is. And as we see them, of course, as someone who has lived before. That would then, however, be a proof of survival, which we are not going into. But anyway, the spirit leaves the body. The body is then in very good hands, and normally it is that of the guide. And so what we're doing, of course, the spirit is able to move away, um, to, let's say, to experience, to see, to hear, to feel, to smell, whatever it happens to be, and that is able to send back the relevant information in a physically understandable way. That is where the third eye comes from. You're stretching out, let's say, the third eye, which is on this sort of cord, which I will go into in a moment. But if you think, anyway, I'm not digressing actually, because there are two things that come together exactly the same time, and I can only say one thing at a time. Anyway, so it moves out. But if you can imagine, the spirit has sort of a DNA. We have a DNA. All the people that ever lived, no one, and no one in the future will ever have exactly the same fingerprints. No one has the same DNA. It's like a spiritual pecking order, if you like. So within that pecking order, we have the spirit which retains the memories of all time. So again, the spirit, we're talking about now, the spirit around us joins us at conception and brings along all of our memory patterns. And what we're doing is to make inways to find if there are any inroads to link us with the past, which will help strengthen our abilities and opportunities in our life now, or perhaps become aware or understand any physical limitations or fears we might have. If we do become aware of what had happened in the past and who we were, we would not have been the person we are now. That is why it is so important. The spirit that is learning would have lived in the past. That is the spirit I just mentioned, is the one that is an independent force. We are the learning vehicle for that spirit. So the spirit that is learning would have lived in the past, but we did not. So in essence, we are trying to find through the memory pattern, through the spirit that is learning, if there's anything that would affect us now, because the effect on us in this life would be given to us from the spirit within. Now, that is not double Dutch. Unfortunately, we're using spirit twice for two different spirits. The spirit around us cannot contact us at all. We cannot contact that spirit. However, there's a spirit within ourselves, say the soul, which is able to liaison with the spirit around us. But the spirit within us also understands the physical needs as a learning vehicle. And it would be that spirit that would relay back the information that is relevant to us now. So the spirit that is around us would say, oi, listen, they're not doing this and this. I need you to do this, to the other spirit. So would be able to give us, that information from the spirit within, which has gained access to the memory patterns of the spirit, which is learning, communication. And that is our purpose, what we are trying to bring forward in our outer body, and why it may be of use. Oh, that's only one reason it would be of use, of course. So by being aware, knowing and seeing the past would have been a pre-incarnation, which in turn can open the area to that all understanding situation of good and bad in life. And it is an all understanding situation. It gives us access to know and use all opportunities that might be available and on offer in our life. And then our life would, of course, be individual. So our opportunities might not suit someone else's, and somebody else's opportunities will not be applicable to ourselves. And so with that thought, of course, we are able to also move through life a little bit easier, not feeling that God has left us behind. We are so hard done by. Why cannot I? That will cease to be quite so relevant to us if we understand and are able to move back in our lives and understand ourselves a little bit, because we're always dragging something from the past with us. So if you can think of a computer which stores everything within its memory, and if you can think perhaps of an analogy, there's somewhere, as I said, God or the universal, whatever it is, somewhere, as an analogy, there's a huge computer in the sky which has in its memory every single situation of DNA, all of us people, that includes little life forms, you name it, and certainly the fingerprints, everything has been stored, and anything that moves in that direction or moves from it can be seen and dealt with. So everybody is monitored, not like a puppet, but we are not lost. We are not here by accident. Someone hasn't sort of taken their eye off the ball and forgot to give you pay rise this year. It's not like that. So anyway, that is how, let's say, the analogy is of this all forming a memory. What moves out, as I mentioned, is the spirit within moves out. It's the etheric part of us which moves out, not the spirit around us, which is learning. The spirit around us doesn't leave until death. The spirit around us doesn't have any intelligent force for us, for the simple reason that it is on its own, as I have also just mentioned. So what is happening? This cord that we're talking about, some people call it golden cord, some people call it a silver cord. It is a human word for our understanding. But what it is, they're like a tentacle reaching out from ourselves. And if a tentacle reaches out and touches the sort of familiarity of what it is touching, then of course it is able to send back a message to the brain in the same way as a nerve does what you're touching, or you stub your toe, ow. It's the nerve that is sending back the message to your brain of ow. If you are feeling a brick or whatever, you know what you're touching even with your eyes closed, because your nerve endings are able to decipher what it is. So in the sense of moving out, say out of body, it's like moving a nerve or a tentacle out, and certainly that seeking and that sending out is then relaying back the information of what it has seen, what it feels, what it smells, what it hears. You can even see yourself. Perhaps you were a totally different origin, perhaps you were a different sex, and so on. All of that we're able to see through the third eye, because we've logged into that memory bank through that computer, and it is relayed back in the form of information to our mind. And that is basically roughly what is happening. Thor, do you want to comment on that at all? Because sometimes in your meditations, I'll get to that as well, you're able to go back, aren't you?
Yes.
And you felt things very strongly, haven't you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Many times in my meditations, I have experienced that I've actually been to other places. You know, you feel, even when you like when I've done meditations lying down in my bed, it's felt like I've stood in a different room.
Yes. Yeah.
I had a meditation the other day where it felt like it was very strange. I was like floating outside in outer orbit.
Mm-hmm.
That was quite incredible, to be floating outside in outer orbit and sort of seeing Earth below me and seeing the sun. And yeah, it was quite a incredible, I suppose, an out of body experience in so many ways, which I didn't induce it on purpose. That's just where I went. And I mean, obviously, if it was physically in outer orbit, I'd be dead. So I wasn't necessarily feeling that, but there is definitely a sensation of height, I suppose. Yeah, and space, which is just which is incredible. Yeah.
and also the feeling of, I suppose, of peace. It must have been a lovely feeling of just to be there. No sounds, nothing, no vehicles or nothing like that going around. Just a total quietness.
Yeah.
And when you came back, how did you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I felt incredible after that meditation. There was a couple of different elements to it now, which I wrote down, but I can't remember offhand. But that's definitely what stood out the most. And yeah, it was just I suppose coming back with an incredible feeling of peacefulness.
That's interesting. And that, oddly enough, I would imagine that form of peace you take with you. You're still remembering it. You still know how good it felt to feel so peaceful.
Yeah.
Actually, the interesting thing is, meaning when you were saying you're out of around the orbit of our planet, of course. Now, nothing actually can go on in the mind, and nothing can go into the mind or into the psychic or the physical part of the mind without some form of internal recognition, which is interesting. So somewhere along the line, I know you haven't been an astronaut this time around, but there's somewhere along the line, you must have either been another planet or something. I may be putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5 instead of 4, but
Yeah.
you were able to recognize it. I know Attenborough and other films, we see this recognition of our earthly planet as well, of course.
Yeah.
But this recognition, when I say we have to know a little bit of what we are seeing, that is, of course, in this life on this planet. If we saw something on another planet, we probably wouldn't recognize it because it was so alien to us. And vice versa, if we were on that other planet and we got a snapshot of what's happening on Earth, again, we wouldn't necessarily recognize that, even though it is part of our memory. But the exception of recognition, oddly enough, is color. Color are exempt because they are seen universally. But that is a recognition point. For instance, if you had a crowd of people, and they obviously did not say have a color blindness, and you held up a blue spot, everyone would put down on their paper that they saw blue, blah, 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 blah. Sorry about that. So that there is a readily recognized situation of color. And that color is also what is predominant. Say, if we take an airline, you're supposed to be calm. You're not supposed to have anything aggravating, nothing to worry about. If you hit a little bit of a bubble or an air bubble and it goes down, you hear little screams. So the colors of the seats, the colors of the interiors would again reflect calm, peace. And those colors would be the same in Norway as they would be in Japan or China. It's just a universal color recognition. But so when we say sound and color, color is also sound, as we know. And then we have the crystals. Crystals, color, and sound are the 3 universal recognized situations. So when we say sound and color, they are the only 2 instantly recognizable universal situations. And through them come understanding and recognition of what we would be able to see outside, which is interesting. I think you participate in those exercises, haven't you, Thor, of color recognition? Let's see, we go through tunnels. Sending colors when we do ESP.
Well, yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's a very good one, isn't it? So let me see. When we're talking about moving out, exploring, seeing past lives, we've gone a little bit beyond that, just sort of out of body around our planet, around the universes, and so on and so forth. In essence, we have to have that calm mind, which can come through meditation, come through sleep. It can come through all manner of situations whereby the mind is calm. But those that can allow their mind to reach that pinnacle outside of the physical forms of relaxation, the total movement outside, which is then called the state of nirvana. that is an area which then supersedes that of what we were talking about, of course. Nirvana is a name which is known, this total oneness, that is the name that is given to it in the East. There are certainly many names for it, but it is the absolute, and that is what we are actually talking about now, an absolute oneness when the mind, the spirit, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, trilogy, whatever it is, come together and are able to move into that holistic environment of total bliss. It is a recognition of understanding everything within a split second of time. Anyway, it takes an incredibly long time. But you see, the individuals who do reach the state of nirvana, they then can't actually give it to anyone. You cannot teach anyone. It is something, it is a gift that is within one, and not necessarily something that I would recommend that you go for as a training situation. If that is part of your bag of tricks, and if that is what you're interested in, you will find that through the auspices of your type of meditation and relaxation, that gift will automatically come forward without anyone telling you what to do, because it is meant to be. Because anyway, you cannot tell anyone what it feels like, because it has to be individual. And only when we look at the situation of then becoming more functional, and functional meaning that you're trying to gain some information to help your physical life. So the lot could then be drawn together. But what we're talking about in a logical form of an understanding is only to try to make sense of it in the physical way. It is not something that is easily described in physical terms. But the sense of a totalness or a nirvana can only be understood by those that have reached it. And they can move very freely anywhere they want to, up, down, sideways, as I've mentioned a couple of weeks ago, the state of letting your mind go. The mind, the spirit can travel. It doesn't just have to travel in one direction as we would like it. But interesting enough, when we're talking about travel, as I said, forward, makes no difference. Backwards makes no difference. Up, no difference. Down, no difference. Because it is only the memory again that will be able to give us a form of recognition that we have actually done anything. So in all of this, what we're saying, there has to be built in a temperance of understanding, the understanding relates to karma, the continuation of life, that the continuation of life can be anywhere, whatever it happens to be, that the circle of time is literally a circle and does not necessarily follow in a physical, our human physical way of 1, 2, 3, 4. It is a circle, and we can be anywhere in that circle of time. It's very difficult to explain in layman's term, but what we're talking of is the time and space travel that can and will be, and is in fact in many parts of the galaxy able to be reached, to free oneself and to just to move. What we're talking about is time travel. And we are in essence also doing time travel with our spirit once we release ourselves and move back. Back is easy, of course. Forward is a bit more difficult. We know we've done the back, the past bit within our world, but the time travel is universal. We cannot necessarily easily do it as human beings on planet Earth at the moment, but it will come to that we are able to achieve this quite easily. But in many parts of the galaxy, it's part of the norm. Wherever we may go, whatever we may do, it is only the mind that sees and understands. So if you do that with the spirit at the end of the cord, or the which is the life force, of course, that cord, of course, it then relays back to what it saw and gives us that information to the physical mind to understand. And that is a travel. It's travel. So the travel, of course, as I just said, it's the cord. The cord can hold, it's like a button that holds a garment together. Anything that holds something together. So if a button comes loose, if something's wrong in your life, you're not doing the right thing, or you're doing something against your free will or something, you get a funny feeling. And this funny feeling, I can only relate to a feeling that if you have a blouse, or if you have a cardigan, or something that has a coat, has a button, and it's slightly loose, and you're fairly fiddling with it, it doesn't feel right. You know something's wrong. And that cord is like that. It's like a button that holds everything together. But as it is symbolic, that's all it is. It holds, keeps everything together. And when one moves away, or spirit moves away for a short time, that cord is still linked to the body. Now, if that cord were to be severed, and this is where a lot of people, oh God, you know, is it dangerous? I've heard it's dangerous and so on. Don't listen to it. Just don't. It's also by engendering fear in someone's endeavors to do something that is out of the ordinary. It is also someone else trying to hold on to you, trying to restrict your movements. But what happens if that cord was severed? Death, of course. The whole thing is then defunct, meaning the whole thing, us, our life, our body. And therefore, that the time limit has come to an end. But the body and the spirit are parting. However, it is not because of the outer body. If a person is meant to pass away, that would occur then because of it is the right time, but not because of the outer body. So, as I said, it's not actually a cord, but it's more like, it's in fact, it's a force which can only be likened to a cord. And that force, as I said at the introduction, is when spirit has joined us at conception. That means the spirit has come, has united the seed. Then, of course, the spirit becomes a living entity. So at that point, it holds everything together. It's the same thing like bootlaces on our boots. We tie them up and they hold everything together. But should the bootlace snap, of course, everything falls. And invariably, the boot falls off again. So what do I really want to say? If you are interested in outer body, astral projection, I highly recommend you go for it. Through the calmness of your mind, that you move forward with it without fear, without hesitation, without prejudice, that you're going to bump into some, say, miserable or dynamic type of a spirit. Forget that. Just forget it. Fear is not what we're talking about. And the more we do our podcasting, perhaps you will agree with us that there is nothing to fear. Also, when we do out of body, the same thing would apply. Say we were very ill, or if we had an operation, or if we were even lying at home in our own bed. Sometimes we can move away out of body and actually see our body in that state of distress. But even then, that invisible cord, that force is still there. It then means that it could also return, and it is drawn back. The guides would draw it back. It is not your time to die. It is meant to give you strength, to see your body, to make you say, God, yes, I want to live. I will help fight this. And your immune system is triggered. Your enthusiasm for life is triggered. So anyway, then it returns, your spirit returns to the body, but should it not, then of course the time would be ready for your death. And that would be exactly the right second, even to a fraction of a second of time. That also that also involves many of the areas of where one's life is finished as a usual run. We cannot force death necessarily. There's a slight gray area there, but I won't go into. But we have a time limit, and when that time limit comes, that is it. Down to the fraction of a second, our time has run out for this period of time, that's all. So what we're talking about in the totalness of this is also a form of communication from that computer in the sky who keeps track of all of our DNA, of our little fingerprints, blah, 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 blah. We're always kept track of. That then communicates to the spirit that is around us. And that spirit around us, which is its own force, learning force, relays it back to what it needs, to the spirit within us, the soul, if you like, to, come on, let's instigate this out of body. This chap still has to live a little while longer. And that is what happens. It's communication between your own spirit and that of outside. So just to round it off, I'm not round it off, but I think with conception, as I said, when the spirit moves close to that seed, of course, and the child is there, during the period of time of the pregnancy, it is the mother spirit that keeps everything together, the nourishment, the spiritual side, which of course is, again, is the electrical force. The spiritual force is the electrical force. Outside of the universes, electricity is that force of life. If our heart stops, what do? We have the pads to instigate the heart to pump. So in the womb, the child is nurtured spiritually and physically by the mother through her spirit until it grows. And once it is ready to be born, the umbilical cord is cut. So then we have an independent life form. I'm not talking about it still doesn't need a bottle or anything. In an independent life form. And at that split second of time, this cord, this life cord, gets into action for this little baby, for its life. So then what is left for the mother or for the father is love, nurturing and getting, looking after it, so on and so forth. But at that point, that is when that child then becomes independent, because the umbilical cord of the mother has been severed, who was looking after it in all those areas. So by being aware, knowing and seeing the past and other wonderful things, yes, would have been pre-incarnation to this life, which in turn can open the areas to all understanding of the situations of good and bad in life in general. It gives us the access to know and use all opportunities that might be available and on offer in our life. But importantly, it gives us peace. It gives us peace within ourselves, that nobody can so easily rattle our cage. If you see the other person's having a bad hair day, takes it out on you, not nice, but good luck. You're not having a bad hair day, and you're not going to allow your cage to be rattled. We've reached 2021, and let's make it a good one. Okay.
Is that the positive message for the week?
Positive. Woo-hoo.
Let's make it a good one.
Let's make it a good one. Yeah.
Well, thank you for listening, everyone. I hope you found that useful, and go ahead and try your out-of-body experience without fear, without hesitation, and there will be no demons.
No demons. No. Send them to us.
Yeah, and we'll take care of them. No
You will
problem.
take care of them.
Thank you
You
for listening,
bet.
everyone. Bye.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Spiritual Link, the podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or want us to explore a topic, please reach out on our Instagram account @SpiritualLinkCo.